What's up, guys? This is Zach from Anglers Escape, and today I want to tell you everything you need to know to begin catfishing. So I'm going to kind of sum up everything here: the terminal tackle, the bait, the rod, the reel, the location to catch the catfish, and make it as short and detailed video as possible. So to start off, I'm going to start with the terminal tackle here. And what I always like to do is I always have an adequate weight. This is an 8-ounce weight because I was fishing heavy current the Missouri River. Here's another weight that I use. Usually it's about a 1-ounce weight in lakes. Heavy current, of course, I have to do the 8-ounce no-roll sinkers. But I always have my sinker, which is enough to cast out or keep it anchored in weight. And then I have a swivel, so this way, as you can see, the weight can freely slide. So when the fish, if I have a little bit of slack, when the fish starts taking the line, it doesn't actually feel this huge weight. It feels almost nothing at all because all I have is this little swivel here to stop the weight. Also, this keeps your line from getting all tangled up a lot of times, having these swivels when the fish starts spinning around, which is nice. So I always have my weight, my swivel, and then you want at least probably a 1 to 2 foot leader. I have it usually closer to 2 feet, but as you can see, I got my leader, and then I have a 10-0 circle hook right here. And this is for big fish. Normally I use a 4-0 circle hook for like eater size catfish, for like maybe 1 to 5 pound catfish, 4-0 circle hook. The big catfish I do 10-0 circle hooks. Right here you can even see I have a 2 hook rig set up. So using big baits like bluegill or even small drums sometimes I'll use for baits. I'll hook them live. I'll have this hook going through the top part and this one in the tail. So if one doesn't catch the fish, hopefully the other will. So basically I got my free sliding weight, my swivel, and then I got a 1 to 2 foot leader and then my hook. And I also want to mention the circle hooks. I always use circle hooks because they're self-setting. So a lot of times when you cast a couple poles out there with bait, it's hard to intently watch every pole and try to set the hook the second it bites. So it's a lot easier just to have a circle hook because it's self-hooking, and there's no reason to have to set the hook yourself. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the line that you should use for catfishing. Most line around 20-pound test is fine for any catfishing you'll do. I caught a 46-pound catfish out of the Missouri River, and there was some current too, and that was only on 20-pound test line. This here, however, is a 50-pound test line. This is 40-pound test line. But for most purposes, 20-pound test line is more than enough, especially if you have your drag set right. But I'm hoping to catch a 100-pound monster one of these days. But anyway, I'd also like to mention that I'm using mono-filament line right here. I think mono-filament line's a lot more forgiving than braided line is. Mono-filament line will stretch out, so if a fish makes a big run, let's say your drag freezes up for a second, the line will start to stretch before it breaks. But with braided, there's no stretching whatsoever, so when it gets really taut, it'll just break immediately. So even though it has the same pound test strength, it's less forgiving in that it doesn't stretch out. So I like the monofilament and 20+ pound test line, but 20 pound works great. Now I'd like to go into the reels down here. Let me bring them over here. So basically, I like to use spin reels. So that's basically all my catfish reels. I have a couple closed-faced reels that I use, but I like the spin reels because they cast the farthest of about any reel type you can get. There's very little resistance with the line on the reel, so that allows you to cast it farther. Not only that, but they're kind of they dry out real easily. They're not all closed up, so it doesn't rust as much. It allows the air to get into it and dry it out, and it's easy to wash out dirt and mud when you get them dirty. So I really like, and I also like to use big spin reels so I can get a lot of line on there. A lot of times you really need to launch these baits out there where the catfish are, so I try to get pretty big reel so I can launch it quite a ways. It has to obviously be able to carry 20-pound test line. As far as the rod goes, I usually get fairly stiff rods because if you get too flimsy of a rod, this one's for more smaller catfish. You can see a big catfish could possibly break that before the line broke. These rods are a lot more heavy duty. These are what I use for my the bigger catfish. They're not gonna break before the line breaks. And so there's my rod, reel, line. And I'd also like to talk about the location of catfish. As you can see, I'm just using weights. I'm not using bobbers or anything like that. Catfish always sit on the bottom. As far as the time of day, guys, I definitely, for a smaller catfish like 1 to 5 pounds, I don't really notice any big patterns on fishing day or night. But if you're going for the bigger catfish, 5 pounds plus, I almost only catch the bigger catfish from dusk and at night. There are some exceptions. I've caught some big fish during the day, but my personal best was at dusk, and most of the bigger fish I've caught were all at night. So I hope you learned something here today, and this is a quick fly through of like everything you need to start fishing. And I do want to talk about the baits real quick. I usually use cut bait. It seems to work the best, or live bait. So you can use cut gizzard, shad, cut bluegill, sunfish, something like that. Some natural food source. Or if you're fishing for smaller fish, my favorite bait for these 4-0 circle hooks is either a little piece of cut bait, like about this big, or you use a piece of worm. That's my favorite. You can use stink baits and stuff like that. I find they don't work quite as well. Sometimes they're pretty effective for the smaller catfish, but I like using cut bait, live bait, or worms. So I hope you learned something here today, guys, and this will help you out, and good luck fishing.